Welcome to the Kenosha Mayoral Forum, hosted by Parkside Student Government. Today we will be discussing various local matters with Kenosha's mayoral candidates: Andreas Meyer, David Bugdala, Elizabeth Garcia, Corey Elijah Washington, and Lydia Spotswood. Your moderator, UW Parkside Student Body President Elishai Riley, will be conducting this forum. And now, let's begin the session.
The first question comes from an anonymous Jeffrey Elementary student. Would you put more swings, huge slides, and monkey bars at the parks? Would you make gyms for kids and adults? Kids want to work out too. And would you also put more firefighters in the station?
All right, so I love this question. Yes, I would love to invest in more playground equipment. I want to make sure that existing playground equipment is well maintained. I would love, ideally, to see every park in Kenosha sort of a mini dream playground. I want more equipment that's inclusive, where everybody, depending on, no matter their ability, has something to do at these parks. When it comes to gym, I would love to see a ninja gym here in Kenosha. I think if you've ever seen American Ninja Warrior, there's people of every walk of life, every ability, they compete on there. I think that would be great for kids and adults all over Kenosha to do that. When it comes to the firefighters, I was interviewed by the firefighters a couple months ago, and I do believe that we are short a few firefighters. A lot of them are also EMTs, which also contribute to lack of enough firefighters in the department. I'd also like to bring in a couple more ambulances and make sure we have emergency services that are within close distance to neighborhoods. We have a lack of emergency systems on the east side. I'd love to restore the emergency system that was there. But yeah, I definitely want to increase more firefighters.
Well, first of all, thank the kids from Jeffrey for the question. It's amazing to get so many different kinds of questions, particularly from, it's a great question from somebody so young. So the easy answer is yes. I mean, absolutely. Our parks are a gem for Kenosha, and we want to continue to expand that. I, for one, am just working on a new park initiative in my own district right now in Horizons Park. We're expanding that park. We're adding all new playground equipment. We're adding a splash pad and a whole bunch of other features, walking path, a nature trail. There's some great areas to the south of where that park is. And I think we need to continue to do that in a lot of our parks. People want to use those. I think we found after 2020, and when folks were home and working from home, there's a lot more people who I think were finding our parks and enjoying our parks more. And we need to make sure that we're continuing to use it as an asset and add more equipment, add more features, add more fun things for kids to do there. As it relates to firefighters, 100%. Our city is continuing to expand. I'm one of the only aldermen. I've pushed for more firefighters, more EMTs over the last several years. We just had a referendum about a year and a half ago to add 6 more firefighters. I think we need to have more. I think if you look at the growth of the city and the areas, particularly to the west side of the city, we need to have that. With the closing of the hospital downtown, it's putting a huge stress on all of our firefighters and EMTs. So we need to figure out a solution to that. Adding more staff and adding a new rig, bringing a new ambulance online is something that we want to do in the first year that we're elected.
So I'm going to address the first part of that as an overall idea that we need more public access to public amenities. So there's a lot of things going on at the parks. There's a lot of things missing from the parks. We definitely don't have bathrooms at enough parks. And there's definitely not enough activities going on for kids. All of the questions that we got from Jeffrey were, the stack was basically, there's nothing to do. Every single one of those questions was like, could we have more fun? Could we, just a few more swings? And, having spaces for children and families to go is a very, very important part of our campaign because community connection is where we're able to build public safety in a different way. And so when we have more amenities at the parks, when we have more activities at the parks, when we have more reasons to go to the parks, people are out, people are meeting their neighbors, people are safer. So we definitely are going to be putting more, whatever we can do to make our parks more enjoyable, whether that's the pools, who need lifeguards, whether it's having the bathrooms open. There's going to be a lot of different things that we do so that children have things to do. And then regarding the firefighters, I looked into what Madison is doing, and so they have about 270,000 people that live in Madison, and they have 14 fire stations. And we have 100,000 people, and we currently only have 4 fire stations. So a 5th fire station would definitely be more ideal because of our population. And there's regulations based upon like what type of buildings you have and your land distribution, and that affects how many fire stations you need. But I think that we're very determined to have more housing and more development and more people come to Kenosha, so we need to prepare for that inevitability. And so obviously we'll need more firefighters, but I think right now we have enough firefighters for what we have for stations, but hopefully we'll be able to add more stations. And I think, again, that's part of public safety, is a very key facet of what we're hoping to achieve in Kenosha.
So I definitely would love to add more swings, huge slides as big as we could get them, monkey bars, and especially exercise equipment for people in the public, right? You look at places like Venice Beach, they call it Muscle Beach, you know, because they have equipment that's accessible. It doesn't necessarily have to be weights, but there's things that you can implement that give people the opportunity to work out without having to have a gym membership. So I definitely would love to expand all of our parks and make sure all of our parks have the things that they need, including park benches, trash receptacles, water fountains as well. Not only do I think the parks that should we be adding more to the parks that we have currently, but I think we need to continue to properly upkeep and renovate all of our parks as well, right? We have a lot of great parks, Washington Park, Lincoln Park, tons of parks all over the city that need some extra love, some extra care, you know? So not only do I want to, you know, continue to add things like the swings, like the huge slides, but we also need to renovate our basketball courts, our tennis courts, our skate parks, and things of that nature. So I definitely really want to push to beautify all of our parks and make sure that everyone has access to the things that they need. And as far as firefighters are concerned, I want to make sure that we have all of the personnel possible that we need to make sure that people, when they need them, they'll be there for them.
Oh, that's a fun question. Hi, I'm a nurse, I'm a mother, and I'm a grandmother. And I believe that every community should be a healthy place for children, a place that is inviting, welcoming, sustainable, and inclusive. And I think public parks are one of the most important things you can have in a community to establish those values in our children. I've been a parks commissioner in the city of Kenosha. I also serve on the board of directors of the Southport Park Association. So I'm working diligently in a specific park, and our association is in partnership with the city to completely transform one of our lakefront parks. I led the drive when I was on the Parks Commission to create water slides in our public pools and to establish the Anderson Park Soccer Complex, because soccer is the most probably popular sport in the entire world, and children from all kinds of backgrounds can come together playing soccer. I felt that you shouldn't have to pay, you know, a whole lot of money to find a place with a water slide and water, so that's why I led the drive to do that. I think we've got a lot of room for improvement in a lot of our parks, and I think parks are essential to sustainable quality of life. They drive up property values, they make neighborhoods more welcoming and inviting. They also bring children and adults together from different backgrounds, and I think that kind of inclusivity really matters in our community. So I'm looking forward to working with families, with children. When I was alderman in my district, I actually invited families to come in and look at the catalog of park equipment to see what they wanted in the little park areas that we had in the 3rd district. I found that was a really fun experience. Families felt empowered when they had the ability to choose what they thought would be right for their own children in their own neighborhood. So I look forward to working with families and children to upgrade our parks as we go forward. I also think that when we talk about sustainability, parks are a really important asset when it comes to environmental stewardship. So for me, we increase carbon capture, we address water cleanliness, both Lake Michigan and in our aquifers. So if you let me go on, I'll just keep talking about parks because that's one of my favorite things. But I'm going to switch over to firefighters. I also chaired public safety and welfare when I served on the city of Kenosha, and our committee had jurisdiction over police, fire, and housing. So I worked very closely with the fire department to make sure we had the appropriate level of staffing, number of firefighters, to make sure that we could get to every home, every business in our city. My goal was to get it down to 5 minutes. And I really enjoyed those relationships. Firefighters are very close to my soul because my background in nursing was all about, saving lives, improving quality of life for people. And I deeply respect the courage, the incredible hard work that firefighters are doing for us every day, not only putting out fires, but in terms of rescue, emergency medical care, and so forth. So you'll find I'm very friendly to firefighters.
Nice. This is an anonymous KUSD high school student. What are your thoughts on the Uptown area? And do you have any plans to do anything to that area?
Yes, I do. For years, Uptown has been neglected by the city. We have lack of transportation services. There's a lack of places to get groceries. There's a lack of affordable housing and a lack of decent jobs. One thing I really want to invest in is more community-based business models. I want to, specifically worker cooperatives. So with this type of business model, it's the same as regular businesses, but each worker owns an equal amount of that business. So if you have 10 workers, it's one vote, one worker. The workers themselves decide on electing supervisors, on deciding where their company is going, their mission statement. They decide their wages. They decide what to sell and how much to charge for those things. I think worker cooperatives would benefit greatly in Uptown as well as all over Kenosha.
Yeah, another great question. We're already doing that right now. It's something that we have been working on for the last 3 or 4 years, completely revitalizing the Uptown neighborhood. And it goes multifaceted. First, you have the Uptown Lofts, which obviously was devastated during the August 2020 riots in the city. But from those ashes, we're actually having a brand new building. We're doing a couple of things there. One, we're adding affordable housing, which is almost completely done right now, to that area. We're adding workforce housing for folks all across the city to be able to have. There is a huge housing shortage in the city. This is going to help alleviate that issue. Two, we're actually putting in, if you look at that area, there's a food desert in those neighborhoods. We're putting in a full-fledged grocery store in that neighborhood. That's a great combination that's going to help not just the Uptown neighborhood, but multiple neighborhoods around that area. And three, and I think most exciting, is the Children's Library, which is going in on 22nd Avenue in that same development. When you look at what we want to do long-term, how do we help our young people? How do we get them excited? How do we continue to have great questions like we got from Jeffrey? We got to make sure that they know how to read. And so by putting in this Children's Library in that neighborhood, again, not just for the benefit of Uptown, but for a lot of the neighborhoods around that area are going to benefit from learning how to read and liking and loving reading. And that's how you actually transform neighborhoods. That's just one of many things. We're also in the process of buying up some abandoned or dilapidated properties in a neighborhood, tearing those down, because unfortunately that's where crime and things will happen. We're going to continue to tear those down. We're expanding some of the roadways to reach out into 60th Street, so you open up the areas on the east side of 22nd Avenue, because that's where some of the hot spots are when you look at from crime statistics. Open those areas up, make it more accessible, more housing, grocery store, children's library. A lot of great things are happening in the Uptown neighborhood, and it's all things that we have been working on the last several years on council with this administration.
So I love Uptown. Marbleheads is over in Uptown. My son's barbershop, Faded Barbershop, is over in Uptown. I used to, when I worked downtown, I'm remote now, so I don't have to go out for lunch as much anymore. I used to go to Jack Andrea's for lunch back when Amy was the chef there. I haven't been to it since it's become Cooper's Uptown, but they have food. There's so many cool things in Uptown, and I think people kind of forget that. You know, some of the only brick roads we have in Kenosha are in Uptown. It's a really vibrant area that there's a lot of opportunity in Uptown. And one of the things that I would like to see happen in Uptown is the old Pick and Save. It's the Brass Center. One of the concerns that, again, the children earlier mentioned was there's nothing to do. It would be nice if we had an indoor space where kids could go. It'd be nice if we had an indoor space where families could go. It would be nice if we had a place where there was some sort of food court, possibly. They have it in Racine, where it's basically an incubator, where there's small businesses that are trying to get going, and they have a little storefront, and they're all there. And I think that having an opportunity for small businesses to come into Kenosha, having an opportunity for indoor spaces for families in Kenosha, having something that's within a walkable area is important. And again, Uptown is rapidly changing, and the more that we put in there to make it nice for Kenoshans, I think we should be doing that.
So Uptown, I love Uptown. I don't live Uptown currently, but I have lived in Uptown previously. I know people that live Uptown. Uptown is a cornerstone of our society, of our community here in Kenosha, right? At one point, Uptown was looked at the same level as our downtown area, right? The Chrysler site was right in the Uptown area. We still have Jockey in the Uptown area. And there's a lot of amazing homes in the area. You know, a lot of people don't, really understand or get to see the beauty of some of the homes and a lot of the historic architecture that is in the Uptown area. A lot of that is the last kind of breath of the history of Kenosha that's left. And we saw in 2020 that they took a big brunt of the damage and turmoil that happened in 2020. And speaking to people in the community, they want their voices to be heard more, right? And I feel that all citizens should have some form of a say in what happens in their community. And when we're seeing massive expansion in the Uptown area, and we're hearing things from the people that don't necessarily coincide with what they want, with what they're receiving, I think it's time to give a little bit more power back to the people. So not only is it a historic area, but it's also an area that people are able to utilize to step up, right? There's always been affordable housing in the Uptown area, and people have been able to, whether they're from Kenosha or they migrate to Kenosha, to utilize the space to be able to make their way up and maybe expand out into another area or buy a home in the area that's not too cost effective, and utilize that to gain equity into the move up in life and to continue to grow as an individual. And I think we need to keep that in Uptown. So I propose that we start a community land trust in the Uptown area. Now, what that will do, it will give power back to the people in the community. It'll allow people to pool their resources, pool their equity, and decide as a community what they want to see in the community, right? When we have a lot of vacant spaces, vacant lots in the Uptown area, that community land trust could pool their equity together, purchase that land, and not allow an outside corporation or company to come in and put whatever they want there. It'll give power back to the Uptown residents, and it'll help empower Kenoshans to get more involved. A lot of people in the Uptown area are disillusioned and kind of don't want to involve themselves in politics because everything that they've seen, not just in the past 3 years, but in the past 10, 20, 30 years of living in Kenosha. So I think it's time to empower the people in Uptown as a start by giving them a community land trust and give them back the power of their area.
Thank you for asking that question. I serve as both a plan commissioner and I serve on the redevelopment authority, and I'm also a home commissioner for the city of Kenosha. So in 3 different ways, I've been actively involved in improvements to our Uptown area. Now, for a long time, that has been a targeted area for urban renewal in our city. But the rioting that happened a few years ago and the fires that were lit there added urgency to the city taking action. A whole area of buildings had to be leveled, and we needed to go in and replace. So I participated and supported the creation of the Uptown Loft project. But it can't end there. We have a lot of work to do, not only slightly west of that area, but also moving east down toward the railroad tracks. It's an area between 63rd and 60th, I think, is that area. Recently, the Redevelopment Authority went into that neighborhood and did systematic inspections, and also law enforcement did an in-depth look at, what is the incidence of crime. Some surprising things that came out of that research was we have a lot of cosmetic work to do, and I would like, consistent with my earlier answer, to establish a park space for families there to gather, for children to be able to get outside and enjoy fresh air. But we mainly need to go in there and do some rehabilitation to properties. We may need to do some infill projects. But I want people to come out of that experience once we're done with the feeling that this is a neighborhood of choice in our city. So we want to blend that together with projects going on in the downtown, but also the Kenosha Innovation Neighborhood. So that whole swath of land, these are some of our oldest neighborhoods in the city, and I'm very committed to keeping Kenosha moving forward, and want to do those projects in those areas.
Do you support the Menominee and Seminole Indian tribes' plan to develop a gambling casino in Kenosha? Do you think a casino would be a good idea for our community?
Right now, with how the plans are going, I'm a little skeptical. I don't think there's been a lot of transparency or reaching out to the community for discussion about this. We don't know how many public resources we might need to be using for this casino, whether it's police, the fire department, emergency services. We don't know the effects on our roads. This could dramatically increase tourism, and with wear and tear on our roads, with emergency services, we're already lacking a lot of that, and I think that at the very least we need an economic impact analysis, comprehensive economic impact analysis, to show us real numbers about how much this would cost, how much people would be going to this casino, how many would be coming into our community. A lot of that has to be done, and I also support including an environmental impact analysis as well.
Yeah, I think right now, we deferred action on this several weeks ago on council, and I think that was the right action to take at that time. Number one, I think we need to make sure that people have an opportunity to see what this proposal is, to give their thoughts and input. I've been crisscrossing this city for the last several months, talking to folks in various forms at their doors, various events. So I think it's important that we make sure to give people the opportunity to make their voice heard. Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think it's a bad idea? What things should we include in the intergovernmental agreement as it comes forward back in January? So I think I've been hearing things on both sides. And I think it's going to be important for us as elected officials to make sure that we're taking the time and slowing it down, make sure we ask the right questions, make sure we get everybody's questions answered. You're never going to make everybody happy. But I think at the end of the day, if we can make sure that we have put our best foot forward, we'll be in a good position. There are a lot of benefits when you look at financially, and we'll talk about some of the things later on, I'm sure. But some of the financial benefits coming to the city, I think, are tremendous. And how, because of some of the funding sources, and when we look at shared revenue and things that come from the state, and the lack of funding coming to the state through shared revenue, in order for us to do some of the things, like we talked about in the first question from Jeffrey, adding more playground equipment, expanding our firefighters. We need to have other revenue sources to be able to do that. This would allow us that mechanism to be able to do that. So there are some trade-offs to that. The county is working on some things. There's definitely some things that they'll need to have if they decide to go forward. So I think that there's a cost-benefit analysis that needs to take place over the course of the next several weeks.
No and no. I don't think that adding something to a community which struggles with addiction that could cause more addiction or more neglect or more, I can't support it. A survey just came out the Kenosha News put it out that people in Kenosha are concerned about drug and alcohol abuse. And I don't think people realize how much our addictions affect our neglect, which affect our children. And I understand it's a revenue stream, and I understand that there's a lot of things in place, and it's, people have really put plans in motion to get this going. I don't support the casino.
So I will say that I can't say that I support the plan, but I will say that I don't oppose the plan. Now, the way things have been handled with disseminating the information to the public, one thing, providing an 80-plus page document of detailing what the plan is going to be the day before, the council decided to vote on what was going to happen with that, really took a lot of people in the community for a loop. Luckily, we have things like artificial intelligence, chat GPT. We could use that to break down the 80 pages into a digestible form. But even with that, it's, a lot of people are upset on how the situation was handled. Also, there are plenty of benefits that we could see from the casino, but we're not going to be retaining ownership as the city, right? I feel that the moves that we make as a city, we need to make sure that they're all equitable for the citizens of Kenosha, right? Possibly we'll make millions of dollars, but we also have to think about location and where the money is going to be coming from, right? So if the major people that are going to be utilizing the casino are people within the city, then we would really just be taking money from our citizens to, in turn, potentially make money, right? So I feel that we should do something, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a casino, but I feel like there's things that we could do that would be a lot more equitable for the community. I suggest, since we are a city, a big city that's continuing to grow, to have some form of rec center or an expo center, right? We're located right between Milwaukee and Chicago. People, my entire life growing up, would say we're a bedroom community. You can live in Kenosha and you can go to Chicago or Milwaukee. But what we should be doing is we should be trying to draw people from Chicago, draw people from Milwaukee to our center, to the epicenter of Kenosha, right? And make money that way. And then if we get a casino after that, if people want to gamble, I'm not saying people shouldn't be able to. But there is also, within 45 minutes north and south of us, we already have casinos. So what we don't have is a rec center where we can have major shows, major players come in, and be able to control the equity and really have all of the gains go directly to the city, not, being passed through someone else, and then we get what they decide to give us.
I actually have a lot of questions and some concerns about this idea. I'm a big fan of orderly development, and a casino, while it's been rumored for quite some time, I don't feel that we've really had a big enough community conversation about this. From the standpoint of giving up property tax base, what are the trade-offs economically for our community? What does it mean to the culture of our community? I know a lot of people who live in homes out where this is proposed are very disturbed about this concept for a variety of reasons. I would like to see the city council and the county board take their time, maybe have some specific public hearings in various parts of the city about this, where people can come in and voice their concerns. I know when we ran into difficult challenges when I was on the Common Council, it always helped us to get a better take on the feelings of our constituents, our taxpayers, when we actually moved out of City Hall. For example, every year I held budget hearings in my district so that my constituents could look over my shoulder at the numbers and the ideas that were in the budget. I feel like we need to take a slower walk toward this because land on our interstate corridor is very valuable. And I don't like the idea of giving up tax base unless we're really certain that we're going to get the right value in return.
What would you do to prepare and incentivize Kenosha residents to create small businesses? How do you plan to prepare the workforce in terms of training so that they would want to stay? What types of jobs creation would you promote and invest in?
So I want to create a public bank of Kenosha. Here, our community can invest in local businesses. We can give out loans that are low to no interest on businesses that benefit the public good. We can invest in local organizations. Your money will not be going into the private pocket of some CEO that lives somewhere. You know, we're investing in the community. The other part of that is I've been very vocal in supporting a funding referendum for our public schools. We need them to be fully funded. I believe we need to, yes, pass the referendum, we need to petition the state for more money, and we need to look at unconventional or non-traditional ways for dealing with our lack of funds, such as neighborhood schools, places like that. The types of jobs I'd like to invest in are, well, again, worker cooperative business models. I want to invest in jobs that are, or in companies and jobs that are created by our community. I believe in the long run they are much more sustainable and tend to be more equitable because the people that run this business are the people that live in your community. I think that education is directly tied to this. I've been very vocal on passing a funding referendum to fully fund our schools. We need to petition the state to give us more money. And we need to look at more unconventional approaches such as neighborhood schools as other solutions. I think that to keep the youth here, we need to build a stronger community. When your community is invested in or committed to social justice initiatives, when we focus a lot on equity, you know, people stay for a community that they want to be a part of. And I also want to create a public urban agricultural program because we have lots of lots that are just empty here in Kenosha. We can grow so much food. We can use that to supply local businesses or local restaurants with food, with grocery stores. We can donate that food when we have access.
Well, I'll take the second part of it first because I think it sort of dovetails in the first half of the question. Right now, we're actually just last night on City Council, we approved the bid for the Innovation Center at the Kenosha Innovation Neighborhood. An exciting opportunity, particularly for our young people to have somebody who has a really neat idea, somebody who wants to start up a new business but doesn't maybe have the financial wherewithal, maybe doesn't know the ins and outs. How do I get something? How do I get a patent on something? You know, things like that, where we actually can help get them started and get that going. So I think that's the first piece. We're already doing that and setting the stage for how we're going to do that at the KIN. The second piece is the first part of the question is how do we incentivize? I think part of the responsibility as mayor is making sure that when we put forth our processes and procedures and how we have somebody run through the process, we need to make it as seamless and as easy as possible. We need to be a partner with that small business owner. We need to be a partner with that entrepreneur to say, hey, I know this is a daunting task, but I know government sometimes may look a little scary, but we're here to help you. We're not here to make things harder on you. We're not here to put obstacles in your way. We're here to make things as easy and streamlined as possible. With my background in the private sector and doing process improvement, I believe that we can get together a cross-section of Kenosha from small business owners, developers, real estate professionals, and young entrepreneurs to say, how do we make this easier for you? And I think over the first year, we can actually put together a plan that makes it easy for people to do business so that when I'm done being mayor, people say, boy, you know what? It was easy to do business in Kenosha, and that's what we're about, and that's what we're going to do.
So one of the easiest ways for us to make it easy for small business owners in Kenosha is to make sure that we have affordable housing. When people can live here and they can have time to create or work towards other things without having to struggle, that enriches our city. If you look around UW Parkside, some of the names on the buildings are from families who were small business owners, who have invested time and time again in Kenosha and who have now become huge families in Kenosha that give back to Kenosha, not just as businesses, but as donors. The Petretti Fieldhouse, right? That is Frank and Rita Petretti, right? Were builders. They have built apartments all over Kenosha and houses all over Kenosha, and they still have apartments in Kenosha. When you're starting from nothing, when you're starting as an immigrant, when you're coming over and you're like, well, I have nothing, and people are are building up and they're given opportunities and they're allowed to survive in a meaningful way, they contribute to their community and they build their community and they invest in their community and they stay in their community. Another great small family business that you see growing and thriving, Tenuta is, right? That's a business that has invested in Kenosha. They want to be in Kenosha, they love Kenosha, and Kenosha loves them. And when we make it easy for people to start small family businesses, they turn into big family businesses, which is amazing, and we need that in Kenosha. And it's not just small business owners, right? We need people that are artists, we need people that are entrepreneurs, we need people that are musicians and makers. Those people need access to affordable housing so that our culture is enriched. When we don't have things going on at night, we get a lot of, there's nothing to do in Kenosha. And it's all kind of a endless cycle. If we're not giving ourselves opportunities, then there isn't anything to do. So we have to be supportive of that. As for how do we prepare people for the next generation of employees, I think our schools, as much as the city has very little to do with what's going on at KUSD, I would like to see a little bit more water science, water safety, we have a water utility that needs employees. We have pools that need lifeguards. We have water that we have to drink. This is something, or we have a charter fishing industry that relies upon the lake. We have a beach that people want to enjoy. There's ways for us to make city employees sooner by gearing people towards public service, and we can do that by getting people excited about the things that they can do in Kenosha.
So youth retention is the first point of my whole campaign. Without our youth, we're not going to be able to survive as a city, right? We need taxpayers, we need a tax base, and the youth are the next tax base. But to retain them, we have to do things that they want us to do, right? No one is going to stay in Kenosha if it doesn't appeal to them. And as we see, a lot of the decisions that have been made in the past 20 to 30 years, honestly, my entire upbringing, haven't really been geared towards targeting youth and youth retention, right? So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're always investing in the future of our children. That means making sure that schools are properly funded. If the city needs to step in to make sure schools aren't closing, then the city needs to have a better partnership with our school district. We also have to have more pilot programs to make sure that we're incentivizing trades so we can have a pipeline directly from our high schools directly into the trades, right? We have a lot of public works in the city. We should be able to utilize people learning trades in high school and give them a direct pipeline into city work. That way they'll be able to get a good job. Also, we need to invest in people that are going to our great colleges and universities and making sure that they don't leave as well, right? There's a lot of people that come into Kenosha for a great education and then leave. We need to make Kenosha a place where you come for an education, but the city is just so fun, it's so vibrant, so great, and they're there to help our young people and our young entrepreneurs that they won't leave, right? They won't be forced to because there will be a greater opportunity somewhere else. So we need to invest in incubators and accelerators, right? We need to incubate those startups, but we also need to make it conducive and attractive for those people that are trying to accelerate their programs that match our city's vision to come and stay in the city. And a lot of young people would love things like that, in my opinion.
So we've actually been involved in the city in promoting local businesses and helping them to build, their businesses over many, many years. We have a number of organizations the city works in partnership with even now. The Kenosha Area Business Alliance, the Chamber of Commerce, the Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative, just to name a few. We work very diligently to listen to people who are leaders in the business community to get their take on where we can deploy community resources at City Hall, okay? I think, a lot of people are studying carefully what it will take long-term to, make the generational shift in our city so that younger families are drawn here, want to stay here, want to build careers and businesses in our community. It's a complex issue. There's not like a magic bullet that makes it all happen immediately. But I think that if we create, as I said, that welcoming, inclusive, and sustainable environment, our community will be more resilient, more families will be drawn here. I'm big on quality of life. So as you heard earlier, I talk about parks, I talk about environmental stewardship. I want to see upgrades in how we approach development and design. And I think all those things come together to create an attractive place where people want to live. And I think if we take those ideas and skew them younger, actively looking for the participation of younger adults in some of the decisions that are going on, that will be healthy for our city. If you look, for example, at a lot of boards at City Hall, a lot of them are populated right now with older people like me. But I think we need to bring in fresh, younger people to participate in the ideas that we're wrestling with at City Hall. And I think that's what's going to really help us turn this corner.
How will you utilize smart city technology and innovation to improve city services, enhance local news media communication, as well as make the city more efficient? Overall, what would a healthy Kenosha look like?
A healthy Kenosha is one that recognizes our unfortunate global depletion of natural resources and the effects of current climate change and the effects that climate change will bring in the future. A strong Kenosha works to mitigate the effects of those future problems and invests in equitable community solutions for the members of Kenosha. And when it comes to smart technology, I think that has to be paired with people solutions. So the smart technology that I am interested in is electrifying our public vehicles, especially buses. We need more charging stations for electric vehicles. I believe we need a municipal-controlled broadband system so that all members of Kenosha have access to high-speed, quality Wi-Fi that's treated as a public utility. I believe this will keep costs down and keep it running smoothly. And the last thing is we need a much more advanced water management system. We need to get the lead, forever chemicals, and other impurities outside of our water.
Another great question. And again, that sort of goes with the last question is, being a smart city, again, this is a huge investment, private investment in our city that is actually going to help us attract and retain some of the companies and investments that we have that are going on right now. People are going to be attracted to having extremely high-speed internet. I mean, that's when you look across the country. There's only a few places in the country that will have this kind of access to high-speed internet. So it's really it's a huge deal. Quite frankly, we don't talk about it enough in terms of how this has the opportunity for somebody who's looking, where do I want to start a business? Well, first of all, they want to be somewhere where it's easy to do business with, goes with our last question. But secondly, how am I going to get my message, my product, my things out to my customers? And when you have something like being a smart city, and when we're exchanging that with KUSD, with our other partners in government here locally, other businesses have the opportunity to engage with that. I think, again, the possibilities are endless on how we're going to actually do that. So I think a smart city really makes us stand out. When you're somewhere across this country, and you're looking, where do I want to be? We have access to fresh water. We have the best water in the entire country. We have access to smart city technology, and we're easy to do business with. That's what I see as the signs of a healthy city. That's how you continue to grow and attract and retain folks and businesses in our community.
So the question kind of feels, a healthy city sounds way different to me than efficient city applying smart technology. A healthy city is a city where people can walk and enjoy themselves, where people feel safe to go shopping, where people are able to go and enjoy the beach. Like there's things in Kenosha, right, that it's just, when we have these nice things, like this is what a healthy city looks like. So regarding smart city technology and how the city can be better at communicating, one of the examples that just most recently happened, we had it's called Magic at Muni. There's a holiday light show it's free to everybody. You go and you can walk around, and The advertisement to get businesses to support the light show was more artfully done, and more thought was put into it than the press release announcing Magic at Muni. Like, aldermen had screenshots of like PDFs that they were and that was the way we were spreading information around Kenosha. And I thought, well, we can do better. There's got to be a better way. So whether it's billboards, whether it's making sure that information is going through at the library, going through at the schools, going through the public transit, there's so many different avenues where we can be advertising directly to people. And then if the app were usable, we have a city app. I don't know if you, okay, people don't know this. It's not very usable. I think the most that you can do on there is like report issues, and then the Lincoln Park disc golf course is, they have a fillable like score sheet available, but you can't, it's not a library card, it's not a bus pass, it's not, you know, anything that's helpful. And if it were a way for people to get information, it might be easier for us to get information to people, but right now it's just kind of, well, it does the one, you know, the one or two. And people aren't going to use it because there's no reason to use it. So I think as much as supporting the Kenosha News is important, as much as I'd love to have an LP FM back in Kenosha, I don't know, Parkside has a radio station that's defunct. It'd be community radio, oh boy, what a fun thing that we could do. But that type of stuff is giving people the opportunity to get information out there. We have access, we have community media, Kenosha Community Media, where it's like public access TV, but it's still just not enough people know about it, not enough people use it, and yeah, it's, I know we can do better.
So Healthy Kenosha is a city that understands the benefits of technology and the transparency and the security that technology can provide, right? One thing that I'm hitting home a lot with my campaign is utilizing blockchain technology. Now, with blockchain technology, it allows you to encrypt data. It allows verification in a manner where you're going to know that you're secure, right? We can utilize blockchain technology to develop a city application, for example, right? A lot of people aren't going to go to the local access. A lot of people aren't listening to the radio. Most people are on their cell phones. If we want to reach the people, if we want to make sure people are informed, we have to hit them where they are. And it's on those devices that are in their pockets or right in front of their faces most of the time. So I say we develop a city application that's ran by blockchain technology. Everyone will be able to verify their identity through the blockchain. It will be secure, it will be encrypted. That way you don't have to worry about fraud or scammers. Everything will be secured from the blockchain. That way we can utilize that to then make services easier and more accessible, right? If you need to pay your property taxes, you can do it through that city app that verifies you through the blockchain. You want to pay a bill, whatever it may be, verify it through the blockchain. You want to take the city bus, you have that application that verifies you through the blockchain, right? Now, all of these services can utilize that, but then we can also use that to send out notifications, right? A lot of people ask me, what can we do about alternate parking, right? Utilizing technology, we have a better way to forecast when there is going to be snowstorms or winter emergencies, right? So we can utilize that, send out a mass message through the application that everyone will have access to, and that way they'll have up-to-date information when there's alternate parking, when there's not alternate parking, and people don't have to feel that they're being criminalized or attacked or being preyed upon because they have nowhere to park during the day. There's endless possibilities, and that's just with blockchain. We just did the deal with Sci-Fi Network to bring high-speed internet to the city, so we need to harness that high-speed internet, utilize blockchain for security, for safety, and connectivity. To add to that, just one more thing, we also do have Kenosha Community Media as well. So we have a media apparatus. Through that application, we can also make sure that we have up-to-date media updates, right? We have a news broadcast. We could platform a morning show or whatever it may be to keep people engaged and keep people informed all through that application. You have your media, you have your services, and you have your access to the public services as well.
You heard me talking earlier about my belief in the importance of healthy communities. And wherever we can, I think City Hall can be digitizing input from our community. A simple example is instead of having to make a phone call for about a pothole, you can take a picture and go to a link on the city's website. One of the things I really wanted to change is the city's website itself. It's a pretty static screen. It's not particularly attractive to look at, and I think it's very murky to navigate. So I happen to have not one but two daughters who are involved in digital media and communications. So they look at it and say, yeah, Mom, you've got a lot of room for improvement up there. So we have tremendous talent within our community to participate in that. Smart City is about a variety of things. There's not like one thing. It's a basket of changes. I look forward to working with Carthage and Parkside and business leaders in our community to developing the concepts that we can implement as a city. I think that's going to change things. The other thing is I want to make sure that in every neighborhood we have access to public Wi-Fi. I think Wi-Fi is going to be the key thing for every child in school. And I don't think that getting access to the internet, to the information superhighway now, should be dependent on a family's zip code or income. So to me, that's a really important thing to upgrade our community. I also, circling back to your last question, think those kinds of changes draw younger families, young professionals, young people in all walks of life actually are looking for that kind of environment. I don't think we should supplant the private sector, but I think having at least basic access to the internet is going to be a keystone change we need to be thinking about. The city's on its way with Fiber City going in, but I think we need to just be very careful to monitor that, upgrade that, and do everything we can in City Hall to digitize functions that will make it easier for people to just go online. Some changes are happening. I'm talking fast, I know, but some changes are happening already. It's easier to register to vote. It's easier to vote now because people can do a lot of these things online. You can file your property tax online. And our current mayor will tell you I've always been sort of very focused on ways that we can make our communication system at City Hall far more user-friendly to our constituents.
How would you rebuild security forces and communities so that they can trust each other and work together?
We do have a problem with crime in Kenosha. I believe most of that crime is due to reasons of poverty. I think that accompanied with my other solutions, I think when we tackle poverty, we help eliminate most crime here in Kenosha. When it comes to the Kenosha Police Department, I believe there is a culture of violence between some of the officers there. And I think that has really destroyed a lot of trust between the Kenosha Police Department and the community. There's no serious accountability for serious misconduct, and a lot of our community members are punching bags to some of these officers. I think to establish trust, we need a major overhaul of the Kenosha Police Department. We need a strong, independent investigation into the histories of all of the Kenosha police officers. Anyone who has been guilty of serious misconduct needs to be removed, and then we need to look for high-quality police officers who are already trained in de-escalation, they understand mental illness, neurodivergence, and who are willing to find a peaceful outcome to conflicts when possible. We need to revise how police officers are able to use force and what they consider threatening behavior. Right now, the burden of trust is on the Kenosha Police Department. They have to earn our trust and prove it.
Yeah, great question. I think we're already on track of that. And when I look, again, after the events of 2020, I think we've come a long way. I think when you look at what happened during that time and where we are today, I don't think any city around the country, anywhere around the globe, could handle the things that we've been able to handle and actually continue to, some of the things we just talked about, the kin, the uptown. Downtown is something that's getting ready to be kicked off here in the next month again, for new development. None of that has scared off any of these larger developers and things. Why? Because we're doing the right things. We're putting the right pieces in place. We're working with lots of different groups. Our police department, our former chief, Chief Larson, I think did an amazing job of starting to lay the groundwork for how we can actually work with some of these different groups, whether they be NAACP, some of the other groups that are out there, and we're making sure that they know and feel comfortable with what we're doing. Chief Patton is our new police chief. He's been there just about a year now in place. I think he's doing a tremendous job. If you look at some of the things that he's done in terms of informing the public, making videos, making body cam videos, all of the videos available in situations that might be uncomfortable, but also taking the time to meet with those folks before those things, making sure they know, listen, this is a two-way street. We're not here to tell you, we're here to work with you. We also have a lot of some of the things with the mayor's roadmap that started back in August of 2020 as well, that we're going to continue. I plan to continue the work on that roadmap and make sure that we're doing the right things for diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that's vitally important. But we also need to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward in all these different programs that we have. And the police department is just one. I think that's taking the right steps and doing the right things to make our city safe, but also make sure that everybody feels like they're being heard. And I think they're well on their way to doing that, and they're doing a great job of it.
So part of the issue of what we have going on in Kenosha is it's twofold. So right now, not as many city workers live in the city as I think should. I think it's nice when people know that their neighbor is someone who might care about them or who might have information. It's an easy way to just first step build community, right? Is you know these people. You know someone who knows someone, and that was one of my favorite things when I moved to Kenosha was, you'd go somewhere and you'd see someone you knew for sure, or you went somewhere that you'd see someone that knew someone you knew for sure. You can't leave your house without seeing someone. Well, that's not as much the same anymore, and it's starting to cause more and more issues because people are strangers. And what I'd also like to see is intervention before crisis, because the police are meeting people when they're having really difficult moments, whether it's like high intensity or high emotion or high conflict. It's really difficult for the police to step in when everyone's at 100. And then they're expected to de-escalate or to facilitate, and there might be neglect happening with children and they're walking into a situation, or it's a lot. And we're asking the police to be social workers, we're asking them to go in before firefighters, we're asking them to be first responders, we're asking them to be security, we're asking them. And I get that they're there for public safety, but I think, again, one of the things that we can do is work on public safety before it gets to policing. Community connection before it gets to crisis. Meeting people before they're getting into DCFS, before they're getting into substance abuse, before they're getting into whatever might be happening. And I know that there's lots of different groups that are trying, and one of the things that we need to do is work on efficiency with those types of organizations, so that people know what's available to them in their neighborhood, and when groups are trying to do the same thing over and over and over again, they're uniting as opposed to trying to reinvent the wheel.
So as far as rebuild, I don't think we necessarily need to rebuild. I think we need a different approach from leadership, right? The distrust is not going to dissipate unless we're actively doing things to make it dissipate, right? Photo ops are cool, going out into the public and, shop with a cop and all of that. We need to continue to do things like that. Community engagement is paramount, but we need the people that don't have the trust in the police to trust the police, right? Taking people that already have trust in the police out to, experience that, it's going to solidify, their feelings. But what we need to do is change the psyche of those that don't have the trust in the police. So we need more community engagement from that aspect. But also, we need to make our environment not as hostile, In my opinion, just being boots on the ground since 2020, going out documenting things, even up to, a couple months ago, there was a major incident that happened in the city where people reached out to me and they wanted to know what was going on. And then, being out there, I was met with aggression, I'm just documenting, providing transparency of the situation and trying to inform the people of what's happening, right? And if I'm being met with aggression, how do other people feel, right? Also, I'll just be completely transparent about it. In the neighborhood where I live on 54th, right in the heart of the city, right? At times it feels like I live in an occupied area, There's giant Suburbans that drive around with blacked out, tinted windows, high-powered rifles in their vehicles, bulletproof vests, and they're not pulling over and playing with kids or saying hello. They're just kind of creeping through the neighborhood. When you pull in the driveway, they're kind of creeping by, checking you out, seeing who you are, but not really, doing anything to make you feel safe. And if it's for security, why is it that people don't feel safe with their presence? So we have to really look at that and really ask ourselves the tough questions. What can we do? Should we be deploying these people into neighborhoods in the manner that we are? Should we be more transparent? And I would say doing things like releasing the Michael Bell bullet would really help that situation.
It's a little pricier than traditional. They ride around in cars. This actually is asking law enforcement to get out of their squad cars, walking beats, riding bicycles. I'm a fan of motorcycles. If we could afford it, I'd get them on horseback. But I like community engagement. And that's where the city is now. Talking recently with our police chief, he's saying the focus is now more on engagement than just getting out. They're working with community-based organizations. To me, that is key. I look at our community organizations, not-for-profits, whether they're shelters for homeless people, or they're doing Meals on Wheels, or they're doing programs with children. All these various organizations, and we have a wealth of organizations, I consider that social capital. And social capital partnered with law enforcement can have a transformative effect on people's experience of a community. You do find from time to time there are hiccups where policing could be done better. I think that's has a lot to do with training and screening officers carefully, when they're being brought in. Many come out of a military background. We're finding not just here, but across the nation. And so they come out of the military with a kind of warrior mentality. You need to, focus training so they're moving more into a protective mode with citizens day to day. Have I seen mistakes? Of course. We've all seen mistakes, not just locally, but in other communities. But I have a lot of confidence in our chief and in our professional police department that they're focused on change. They were active participants in creating the Kenosha Action Roadmap to the future. And not only were they involved, but faith leaders in our community, other community leaders were working diligently together. We need to keep that project moving forward and do periodic reviews to make sure we're keeping pace with the changes we want. This kind of goes back to what President Obama talked about, being the change we want to see.
Do you have any plans for affordable housing in the future?
So housing is not the same as it used to be 10, 20, 30, 50 years ago. It's changed drastically. Right now, a lot of people cannot afford private rent, and I do not plan to invest in any private renting initiatives. I want to focus more on community-controlled, tiny home communities. One of the reasons why rent is unaffordable is that when you're paying rent, you're paying property taxes, you're paying for maintenance of the apartment, but you're also paying personal profit for the landlord. And that can be a lot of money. When we have community-controlled housing communities, there is no profit margin. We don't pay that. We pay for the property taxes, the maintenance, and that's it. We can make housing much more affordable if private landlords want to believe that they can compete with the price or quality of housing. I'd be open to that. But right now, I feel like community-controlled housing that is democratically controlled is the way to go.
Yeah, so we talked about it earlier. One, we already have it and are already ready to go, which is in the Uptown Lofts. I had a chance to tour those beautiful apartments, again, in one of our older neighborhoods. But we can't stop there. One of the things that we see right now in the economy, with interest rates being high, construction costs are high, they're not building a lot of single-family homes. So what we've done is we're getting ready to start it, we're putting together a program, a partnership with Uline. Liz Uline has actually donated $3 million to the city of Kenosha. We're going to match that $3 million. And we're going to start building single-family homes again in older neighborhoods. One of the hallmarks of our campaign has been revitalization of our older neighborhoods. We need to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward again, and that we're doing the right things, and that we're investing in those neighborhoods. That's the heart and soul of our city, is our older neighborhoods. So we're actually working on a plan to actually start to build single-family homes again and making them so that they're affordable. What we will be able to do is donate the parcel. The city has lots of parcels across many different neighborhoods in the city that we've acquired over the years. We will donate that land to a developer. That developer will build a house, single-family house there. We will deed restrict that parcel so that it can only be owner-occupied. And then we will actually then subsidize a portion of that construction. So we bring down the cost of the house. So a house that right now may be $300,000 or $250,000, maybe it's $250,000 or $200,000. You've now made that house much more affordable for a young home buyer, first-time home buyer, somebody who's moving, maybe downsizing, wants to go into some different areas. That's how you actually revitalize neighborhoods. You build single-family homes, you push for owner-occupied, and you make sure that you are giving people the opportunity to have affordable housing. So we're well on our way to that. It's something that I have been working very closely with Mayor Antaramian on. We're still putting the finishing touches on that program, and I'm confident that I will be able to do that and bring that forward in the first year of our administration.
We definitely need to expand our development in Kenosha. We definitely need more affordable housing. We definitely need to increase our access to housing, and the only way we can do that is by building. We're going to need to build up as much as we're going to need to build out. We're going to need to make it easy for people to build upon the homes that they have. We need to make sure we're using our space efficiently, and we're needing to develop neighborhood identity so that those community connections that we're having happen in everybody's neighborhood keeps us safe, as opposed to everybody having to go downtown for activities and having to go downtown for festivals. And you're going to be able to know people, and the fact that we have a 10,000 unit thing, or 1,000 units being built downtown and 1,000 units being built in Forest Park, that's not going to be as scary when you're able to know your neighbors and you're not as worried about what's happening because you know the people around you.
Yes, so I definitely do. So one thing would be the community land trust, like we talked about earlier in Uptown. That would give the power back to the residents in the neighborhood to control the rent in the properties and not allow businesses to come in to up the rent in certain areas, or allow out-of-state landlords to have properties that they're overcharging for and not maintaining the property, lowering the equity for the neighbors around them, right? But also there's ways that the city can step up to provide as well. So one thing that was mentioned, or that occurred a few months ago, was Uline stepped up, and they feel that we need more housing in the area. They want more employees at Uline, and we need housing to be able to supplement that. So they made a donation of $3 million that the city has to match to develop housing. So what I would say is we need to take them up on their offer, but make sure when we're developing the properties that we receive the $3 million for, and the $3 million that our taxpayers are going to put up to develop these properties, that the properties are going to Kenoshans, right? So I suggest that we build our own properties. We build a complex that's owned by the city, managed by the city, maintained by the city. It will create jobs for people within the city, but it will also provide housing in the city, And then also we'll be able to dictate how much the rent will be. And we can utilize that as a way to, again, give people a step up. You know, we maintain rent at a certain level. You're able to save your money for whatever period of time that we decide. Of course, you know, we're gonna have to come together and we're gonna have to fine tune it to make sure that it works and it works for everyone, but we have to do something. And I feel if the city owns these properties, it doesn't have to be a lot, but has some sort of, you know, control over what happens in terms of beautification. We'll be able to keep it maintained, provide jobs that way, but again, give people a step up in affordable housing that they won't have to worry about, oh, property values went up or property values went down, they're gonna raise my rent or whatever it may be. You know, they'll be secure and they'll be comfortable and they'll be taken care of and they'll be able to get themselves out of the scenario that they may be in and, you know, better their own lives.
Now you're in my wheelhouse. So, as a nurse, I believe affordable, safe housing in welcoming neighborhoods really matters to individuals and families. It creates a feeling of safety, a sense of belonging, a feeling of neighborhood and people coming together. And I want people to see our community as a family-friendly community, but for people in all age groups and at all stages of life. It's why I serve on the Redevelopment Authority. The mayor appointed me to the Redevelopment Authority, the Community Development Block Grant Fund, and the Home Commission, because this is a passion for me. As I mentioned earlier, I'm very interested in seeing us move into a real strong urban renewal project in our, what we call the Uptown East neighborhood. The Kenosha Innovation neighborhood will be bringing in workforce housing. And we have been active as a Redevelopment Authority in the Wilson Heights neighborhood. That's a serious urban renewal area. But neighborhoods throughout our city have infill projects that are possible. Another organization that I think needs to be mentioned here is Habitat for Humanity. I'm working with them right now to modify our building code so that they can be doing their projects at lower expense and moving them more quickly through modular components and changing foundations of buildings. So you're going to see that that's something that's very close to my heart. It's very hard for people to have an investment in housing and to see their neighborhood deteriorating. And I think the city has a duty to homeowners to make sure we're lifting up the quality of life in every neighborhood and expanding homeownership. One last thing I really want to mention here. About 47% of Kenosha's housing is rental property. One of the most transformative things we can do for families especially is to help reliable rent payers become homeowners. They become more vested in their homes, their neighborhoods, and the quality of life. They become more active participants. We've seen this change happen in the Lincoln neighborhood over the past couple of decades. Now this is slow change, but it's crucial change to move people where we can through a combination of down payment assistance, mentoring, because a lot of families come from, you know, generations of being renters, don't have that in their repertoire. So to me, you know, mentoring and support, down payment assistance can really help us get more neighborhoods expanded with homeownership and more stable.
How do you guarantee that the little progress made in racial relations, inclusion, and reduction of social gaps does not slide back in dangerous reversals as the DEI controversy is amplified?
So unfortunately, we cannot guarantee something like that at the state level. What we can do is petition and call our representatives and tell them to drop it. At the county level, we had the Racial and Ethnic Equity Commission that was established to combat racism, among other things. Unfortunately, our county executive appointed a lot of unqualified members to this commission, and there's been months where people have criticized them for not doing as much as they can. Unfortunately, our county executive abruptly removed all of the members except for the 2 county board members that are on there. Unfortunately, there's a quorum issue, so basically the commission is inactive. Our county executive also urged the county board to vote to completely dissolve the commission. I completely disagree with that. I think we should have removed the unprofessional members and recruited qualified individuals that know what they're talking about and that are not influenced by Moms for Liberty. But when you're taking the county, state, and federal level with all these equity initiatives that they're trying to do, at any time they can cancel all of these things. Our civil rights or human rights can be taken down. That's why I really want to invest in a local human rights department. So locally, we can work to guarantee our internationally recognized human rights laws so that no matter what happens at the county, state, or federal level, we can stay protected.
Well, I guess the first thing I would say is I don't know that we have made a little progress. I think there's been great progress. And I think when you look at, as we talked about earlier, some of the things that the police department has done, the transparency that they've had, we've instituted body cams and all of our officers. We're meeting and continuing the plan, as I said, with the mayor's roadmap put together. We've got a lot of different committees working on a lot of various things. I think again, this police chief, Chief Patton, has done an amazing job. I think he's been more than transparent. I think he meets with a lot of the folks. But we have to also do that as well. As an administration, as a council, we need to make sure that we're committed to it. First of all, acknowledging that there's a problem, I think is first and foremost. Obviously there is, but we also have to be cognizant of the solution. And sometimes those solutions might be uncomfortable for folks on both sides. And I think as long as we're willing to have that open-mindedness, we're willing to have that discussion, I think there's nothing that we can't solve. I think if anybody looks, again, over the course of the last several years since 2020, we've come a long way. And I think that is due in a large part to the progress and the collaboration that we've had together as community groups, as law enforcement, and as a city and city government. I think we've done some great things, and we will continue to do that in my administration.
I think it's inappropriate to make guarantees. However, I do know that throughout my time in Kenosha, whether it was with the Girl Scouts or Boys and Girls Club, and even now, a lot of the issues that we face are the intersection of bureaucracy, policy, and real life, and how often the people who are writing our policy are not living the policy or suffering at the hands of that policy or bureaucracy. And when we talk about equity, it's very often treated as equality. So people are receiving the same services. But that's not going to benefit Kenosha if we're trying to make sure that Lincoln Park gets $10,000 and Forest Park gets $10,000 and Isaac gets $10,000, because each neighborhood has a different need. And it's something that we can work towards, but that takes people in Kenosha wanting change, and change is something that has been rebuffed time and time again, and it's hard to make guarantees, and I just wish that we're able to make Kenosha a little bit easier for everyone to live in.
I would say it shouldn't be that tough, right? But it is, because it's unfortunate that we live in a society where we have to have, this written guideline for people not to treat people bad, right? There shouldn't have to be guidelines of equitable inclusion, right? Everyone should just have access and everyone should have a chance. Unfortunately, that's not the world that we live in. There's a lot of things a lot of hurdles that we need to still get over, but to get over those hurdles, we actually have to have the conversation, right? We have to have a conversation in a manner that's not talking down to people. We have to have a conversation in a manner of understanding and wanting to hear people, and genuinely wanting to hear people and actually make adjustments. So I can only speak from my own life experience. I've dealt with tons of scenarios where you think, it's like, was it based off of my merits or my talents, or was it something that, why I didn't get the position or whatever it may be? I think having those conversations, being honest, but also, again, not coddling people, I can only speak for myself, but I don't want a position because of what it symbolizes, right? Especially members of the Black community. I'll just be honest. There's been a lot of symbolism, and when it comes to providing equity, but it hasn't really been genuine equity, right? It's like, you can direct this movie. We're gonna make you the manager, right? But then you look at everybody else around them, and you'll see the checked boxes, but outside of the checked boxes, it's business as usual. We need genuine partnerships, and we need to bring in companies and individuals that genuinely want to bring that change, right? To have the city grow, we have to bring partners into the city that want to develop the city into a place that provides that equity, that diversity, that inclusion, without having to tell them to do so.
To see diversity, equity, and inclusion politicized, to me, is a giant step backward in our society. I think it's very damaging to individuals, to families who struggle. It's dangerous for neighborhoods and for communities and for all of our institutions, especially educational institutions, for example, right now. Fascinating thing is, if you look at corporate America, they're ahead of many governmental entities at this point in America. They recognize how important this is to their workforce. They don't want to feel like people don't want to join their companies because they have a reputation for discrimination or inequitable systems. We need that same perspective in city government. We need to live that out in city government. And it's one of the reasons that I want to establish a Human Rights Commission in the city of Kenosha. But I also believe this is up to each and every one of us to stand up for people when we see things that are inappropriate, where they need to be supported. Bullying happens in vacuums where people step back, and we need to be supporting each other. Can I guarantee that people will behave in a certain way? I wish I could. But I think that if we model the way that it should be, where we are respectful of differences between people, diversity, and we work to create equitable and inclusive environments in our community, I think that's where the change will come from. And I think partnering with business and industry is going to be key. Recently, I talked to a leader in a pretty serious corporation who has been contemplating coming to our city, and they're unnerved by the rioting and wanting to make sure that our community is moving past that and embracing divergent people and diverse viewpoints and experiences.
There is, unfortunately, a common expression voiced by the youth: there's nothing to do here, which isn't true. How would you change that rhetoric within our overall community? What makes Kenosha special?
Yeah, I empathize with that as well. We have a lot of bars, but outside of that, there's not much to do for the youth and the adults. Two things that I really want to do is, again, invest in a ninja gym. I think that would be really successful. I want to invest more in 4-H so that there's more programs for our youth to do. But I also would like to send out surveys to every family in Kenosha and hear from the kids. I want to hear what they want to see in this community. When it comes to what makes Kenosha special, we have several great universities, our public libraries, our museums. They are just fantastic. Over the last few months, we've seen a huge movement of community members standing up and supporting education, fighting hate groups here. We have a lot of passion to really get stuff done here. And I think the combination of our public resources and our great members of our community, we have a lot of potential to make great things happen here in Kenosha.
I think a couple things make Kenosha special. I mean, I love this city. I wasn't born here. I chose to move here over 20 years ago with my wife to start our family, because we looked at this community and said there were so many great things that were happening here. There's so much that they have, so much possibility. The people that are here are absolutely tremendous. I have made lifelong friends here. My kids, this is all they've known. They enjoy everything about Kenosha. They love it. They've grown up here. They go to school here. They go to church here. My son is getting ready to go to college here in this community. So I think our people are our number one asset. But also, when you step back now as a mayor and you look at regionally, you look at our geographical location, I think is one of our highest assets. We're between Chicago and Milwaukee, with I-94 corridor, with Lake Michigan. When I have folks come to visit for me from out of town, from other parts of the country, the first thing they want to see is the lake. They love it, and we're spoiled here. We don't take advantage of that. I think we need to continue to bring forth more activities down at the lakefront. I've been pushing for a long time, and we're getting ready to start it come next year at the Simmons Island Beach House, and making that so it's more activities for kids, where you can rent a kayak, you can rent a jet ski, things like that. You can do beach volleyball. A lot of those activities that come with being on the lakefront, we need to make sure that we're there. I think having the opportunity to have a 22-year-old and an 18-year-old, they remind me every day, Dad, don't forget. And I don't think we do. But I think we also have to make sure that we're continuing to invest and have things for those kids, young people to do. We have to expand our entertainment district, which is the downtown area. I think there's a lot of possibilities we can do there. We're doing a lot of great things there now, but I think with the downtown plan that's coming in there, some of the new activities, I think they're going to spawn off of that. Having more green space, having more activities for our young people, not just in the summertime, but in the wintertime. Because in wintertime in Wisconsin, you need more activities to do. Summertime is easy, but we need more things to do in the winter. I think we're going to do that, and I think with the investments that we're making in our city, we'll be able to do that and keep Kenosha the great place that it is for all people.
Okay, I used to take umbrage to this question greatly. When I moved to Kenosha, and people are like, there's nothing to do in Kenosha. You must be the most boring person ever if you can't find anything to do in Kenosha. There used to be live music every single night of the week. There's art shows. There's all sorts of amazing things to do and people to meet. And you can do bowling and dart leagues, and we're right by a curling club in Racine. COVID kind of killed a lot of those things. And also now talking to people who put on those types of events, I'm finding out that, again, bureaucracy is limiting our ability to do things like that. And when people aren't able to put on shows, like put on live music shows, then if it's hard for them, they're not going to do it here. They're going to do it somewhere else. And when we don't have things to do, we get a lot of, there's nothing to do in Kenosha. But really, there is a ton, first of all, there is a ton to do in Kenosha. Kenosha is so special. Besides being directly between Milwaukee and Chicago, and on the beautiful shores of Lake Michigan, Kenosha is so special because we have sidewalks, which not every city has. And I know that sounds silly, but I grew up in the country, and being able to walk places without feeling like I'm gonna get run over is huge. Right in my neighborhood, I can walk to amateur baseball, I can walk to Lake Michigan, I can walk to a corner grill, I can walk to several schools, like a pharmacy. I can keep going because I live in a very walkable neighborhood, and a lot of people have that in Kenosha, and that's not something you're gonna get everywhere. And the further west you go in Kenosha, you're not getting as much of that, and I'm hoping that we can move back towards, again, what is traditional Kenosha of people having their neighborhood and being able to rely upon things in their neighborhood. Oh gosh, what makes Kenosha special? I'm gonna keep going. We have the oldest operating velodrome in the United States. The velodrome in Washington Park is actually in a naturally occurring bowl. Kenosha used to be home of a bicycle manufacturer. So we have a rich tradition of bicycling. So the velodrome and the bike paths and all of these things, we definitely, when we talk about like Kenosha culture, we can be reinvesting in that so that we're keeping Kenosha, Kenosha. We used to have Coho-Rama. We used to be a city of festivals. I'm hoping we can bring back more festivals because people need things to do. I love Kenosha so much.
So do I.
Yeah, there's so many things that make Kenosha special. It's, I wish more people, I wish more people were excited about Kenosha as much as I am. For a while, people were like, do you work for the Visitors Bureau? Why are you so, and I was like, no, I just really love Kenosha. I was at a wedding in Milwaukee. I talked up Kenosha so much, I convinced my cousin to move here. He's like, it just made it sound like such a nice place to live. it is a really nice place to live. So yeah, Kenosha is a very, very special place, and I hope that more people take advantage of things like the sailing center, and that we're able to make people enjoy Kenosha through public access to public amenities, right? Making things available to them so they can enjoy their life more.
So yeah, good old Kenoware is what they called it when I was in high school. And I think people may even still call it that. We have to embrace what Kenosha is great at, and that's the arts. Throughout it all, the arts were always there, right? We had the auto industry here. When that went to the wayside, the arts were still here. The arts were there to supplement them when we had Chrysler, and we had the arts before Chrysler. This is the birthplace of Orson Welles. This is the birthplace of Mark Ruffalo, Al Molinaro, Betsy Ade. The list goes on and on and on. Every generation we have talent that just seeps out of the fabric of Kenosha, and we need to harness our talent. That's one thing that I'm hearing from young people across the board. What are we going to do about the arts? What are we going to do to make it where kids want to stay here, where young people want to stay in the city? It's just an idea. It's one thing that I'm thinking of on top of the host of other things. But I think we should have some sort of major festival. And I'm talking on par with South by Southwest, where we're able to harness the arts, harness the talent, and harness technology and bring people from all over the country, all over the world, onto Lake Michigan, in between Milwaukee and Chicago, for the best local and national talent that anyone can ever experience. People need a step up out of Kenosha as well. Our talent, it's inevitable that they have to go and see the world, but we want them to come back. And having that annual thing that will at least bring them to the city, that will also help the economy, help our local businesses, is just one attraction that we could have that will keep young people in the city and feel that they are actually recognized and appealed to when it comes to the decision making in the city.
That's a really deep question. For me, this was a wonderful place to raise my children. And I want every family to know that experience as well. I think there are tremendous opportunities for children growing up in everything from the arts to science. We have an array of educational facilities and so forth. But in the end, I don't know that the city can go individually child by child to create those changing attitudes. But I think if we can focus on the overall environment, if we can provide support to families, and if we're good listeners, I think that's where we're going to see change happening, okay? I love having like youth summits. I love having a youth commission. I love, engagement with people, again, in all age groups. I think we need to be engaging with parents to see what they're experiencing with their children. We live in a time when we're seeing very frightening changes going on in teenage years for children. Suicide rates, for example, are on the increase. I think that in part is a function of people feeling excluded and bullied and not feeling like there are safe spaces they can get to. So we need to work diligently, not just firsthand, but also through our community-based organizations, our social capital, to make sure we're reaching into communities of color, ethnic and religious differences. We need to be working carefully to make sure people first of all feel safe,
Right.
okay, and then to feel that this is a welcoming environment. And I think, as we talked about a little earlier, we need to get the word out. We need to make sure that they know there are great places to be and things to do throughout our city.
In short, please state your top 3 priorities. What impact do you think you can make within the community in Kenosha? What strikes you as the big issue that you want to take up when you become mayor?
My 3 top priorities are equality, human rights, and basic needs for all. I believe you can't have one of those without having all of the others. With the Human Rights Department, its main goal is to work to guarantee all members of Kenosha their basic needs, and that's clean water, healthy food, affordable housing, adequate, fully funded education, and health care. if I had to put a top priority for that, it would be the Human Rights Department, because I think that's where it's all going to start.
So I think this is the top three things for me. Number one is public safety. All the things we've talked about, if we don't have public safety, nothing else is going to matter. People need to feel safe in their homes, they need to feel safe in their neighborhoods, but it goes beyond police. I know everybody says public safety and they think it's just police, but it's our fire too, as we talked about earlier. We need to be cognizant of the fact that our city is expanding, our city is growing. We've lost the emergency room in downtown at Kenosha Hospital. That is putting a tremendous strain on our firefighters. So we need to make sure that we're adding services from a fire protection and EMS service as well. So public safety is our number one priority. Number two really is, again, we spent a lot of time talking about older neighborhoods. Again, that's the heartbeat of our community. We need to make sure that we're investing in those areas. I'm also chairman of the Water Commission. One of the big initiatives that we brought forward, we were the first in the state, was to have the removal of lead pipes. We need to continue that and actually accelerate that. We're working right now on a program to potentially accelerate that even more to get the lead out, which is our tagline, even faster than what we're projecting right now, because it's the right thing to do for our constituents and for the city of Kenosha. Third is we need to make sure that we're investing in our people. We need to make sure, we talked earlier about making things more efficient and easier. And that's not just for citizens, that's for our employees. Our employees are our number one asset at City Hall. I will only be successful as our employees allow us. We need to make sure that we're taking care of them. We need to make sure that we're listening to them. Again, as someone who actually works in the private sector now, running a major business at a major Fortune 100 company, we need to make sure that we're investing in our people. And that means listening to them. They've got a lot of great ideas. We need to sit down with all of them, make sure that we're actually putting those new processes in place and say, how do I make your job easier? I think if I can make their job easier, again, I can't maybe not compete from a pay standpoint with the private sector, but if I'm listening to you, I'm making your job easier, think how much more satisfying your job is. And that makes it easier for our citizens to do business here in Kenosha. So it's really a win-win all the way around. Those are my top three priorities if elected mayor in April of 2024.
So my three top points are safe water, safe streets, safe neighborhoods. I want to make sure that people are able to have public safety in a variety of forms, whether that's more lifeguards, whether that's better signage at the beach. I know they just put up a sign. People don't really understand structural currents still. People don't really understand the river currents still. We're having a lot of drownings. That's bad. You know, we have a lead pipe removal program that's not really advertised, and it's kind of sputtering because, again, there's just not communication with citizens, and that's bad. I know we can do better. So when we say safe water, we're not just talking about future-proofing our water utility so that it's preparing for all the salt that's coming into Lake Michigan or the microplastics that are coming into Lake Michigan. We're talking about a variety of ways for us to be safer. Lifeguards, again, we need our pools open and available to the public. And without lifeguards, we can't do that. When I talk about safe streets, I'm not just talking about driver safety or bicyclist safety. Really, pedestrian right-of-way is a huge concern of mine. One of the questions you sent originally mentioned, what are you gonna do with all the speeders in Kenosha? And oh my gosh, I have made it a personal mission in front of my child's school to point at the stop sign. I look like a frantic person because there's no enforcement. There's no one. One of the things I found out was that the police are understaffed, essentially, that we only have enough officers to respond to calls. We don't really have officers to do enforcement. And so low-cost traffic calming measures are something that I'd like to implement very, very quickly with discretionary funds. It needs to be easy to get around Kenosha. It needs to be safe for people to get around Kenosha. When kids are trapped at home because they can't bike anywhere, because the buses don't run, because they can't walk anywhere, that's bad, right? Then there's nothing to do in Kenosha because you can't leave your house because it's unsafe. So it's a multifaceted problem when we talk about safe streets. Again, that we'd love the police to have more enforcement, but it may not be what we do. We have to do other things besides policing. And then safe neighborhoods, again, goes back to community connection. When you know your people on your street, when you know the people in your block, when you know the people in your neighborhood, you're a lot safer. When we have access to what are called third spaces, where you're seeing and meeting with your neighbors, it makes us all safer. So I'm hoping to encourage that type of development and behavior in each neighborhood so that we can all be safer before we have to be at a crisis level involving the police.
So my 3 top priorities, number 1 is youth retention, and they all kind of go together in a way. That's one thing about my entire campaign. You'll see I'm painting a picture of what I want to do, the picture of what Kenosha could be, and it involves everyone in every aspect. But youth retention is at the core. Also, affordable and equitable housing, right? Not just affordable housing, but the housing needs to be equitable as well. People need programs for home ownership that's more accessible, and people need to be able to utilize that equity to have the lifestyle that our parents had before us, our grandparents had before us here in Kenosha, with only, working at Chrysler, right? We need to be able to have that. But then also, we need to future-proof our industries for the future. We need jobs of tomorrow. We need companies of tomorrow, those companies that are growing now, that can be big, and those companies that are already big that are looking to expand. As we've seen, Microsoft is moving into the area. Kenosha it's a wonderful location based on the greatest body of fresh water on the planet. We have to recognize that it's valuable. We have to recognize that people want what we have, and we can guide our future based off of the wants and needs of other people to uplift everyone in our community.
For me, I'm focused on 3 big things, but 2 go together. Focused on economic resilience as a community and affordable housing. I believe those 2 things go hand in hand. And I think that we've got a lot of different ways, as I mentioned earlier, to work on affordable housing. We also have to make sure that we are rolling out the welcome mat to great companies that want to locate here, and we're supporting family-owned and built businesses that are already here. So those 2 things go hand in hand to me. If a family can't find a place to live when they're new to our community, the economy is not going to do too well. So, in fact, at City Hall, I know of 2 employees that came and threw in the towel because they could not find affordable housing close to City Hall. And that really floored me. I'm focused on public safety. As I mentioned earlier, public safety from the standpoint of teamwork and partnership between law enforcement as well as our social capital, our community-based organizations. Some of these organizations are doing phenomenal work, and I want to boost them and support them and help them to network more and more effectively throughout our city. Whether it's getting meals to senior citizens, after-school programs in our children's schools, making for better playgrounds and public spaces, building up neighborhoods, expanding our park systems. All of these things feed into quality of life. And for me, quality of life is probably going to be one of the bigger issues that I'm focused on. Because when people feel like it's a resilient, buoyant place to raise a family and work, and retirement age experiences are good too, I think people come, work, raise families, and want to stick around.
This is the final question, and it's from another anonymous KOSD high school student. What makes you suitable for the mayor position in the city? What makes you good as a leader?
So I graduated from UW Parkside in 2016. I studied sociology and anthropology. When it comes to sociology, it's all about usually bigger countries, industrial nation states, and the problems and solutions that we have with them. Whereas anthropology, it traditionally has focused a lot on smaller cultures, smaller societies, and there are a lot of different ways that societies practice economics, politics, how they, their types of either agriculture or smaller scale farming. I think that there is a lot of those alternative systems that could really be used right now. I think we're dealing with a lot of, unprecedented events right now in the world with again, global natural resource depletion, and we need to start looking outside the box and sort of discarding obsolete practices that are no longer relevant. I think leadership in itself is actually a little overrated. I believe cooperativeness is key, and I think at this moment in time, I believe that I'm the right candidate to bring Kenosha forward.
I think that is my strongest attribute here in this election. I have been working at a Fortune 100 company for over 25 years, managing people, managing businesses, managing large budgets, working with folks around the globe on a day-to-day basis. I think that type of experience is invaluable for the next mayor. But I also think it's important as somebody who's actually been in city government and recently, where you know the players, you know what the issues are, you've been working on those issues, and somebody who has a proven track record of actually getting things done for their constituents, making things easier for them, making things easier for our employees. I think that's what we've been all about over the course of the last several years. So for me, I think leadership is the key. Leadership and experience are the key issues in this election. We need to make sure that the next mayor is somebody who's thoughtful, who understands. Sandra Day O'Connor, who just passed away, and they're having her funeral actually today. And I saw a quote actually this morning from her son when he was asked, what do you want the legacy to be for your mother as she was a Supreme Court Justice? And he says, pretty simple. She got things done, country over party, and just getting things fixed in relentless pursuit of doing the right thing. That's what I've done the last 15 years on city council. That's what I've done for 25 years working at my company. And I think that's what Kenosha needs right now. Somebody who's committed, dedicated, understands the tough decisions that need to be made, but is also compassionate, that also understands what our folks need to do. Somebody who's energetic, somebody who knows how to work with all types of folks on wherever they may be on the political spectrum. That, I think, is what's easy. One of the things I love about local politics is it is nonpartisan. You just do what's right for Kenosha. That's what Kenosha wants. I think that's what Kenosha is hungry for. That's what Kenosha needs, and that's what we're going to bring as mayor in the city of Kenosha after April of 2024.
What makes me a good leader? I'm very kind. I try to lead by example. I'm very much a person who lives my values. So like I said earlier, I'm taken personal umbrage to speeders and have gone out and like stood on my street and just pointed at the sign frantically because it's a problem and I want to fix it, right? And I reached out to my alderman and he basically ignored me. And I reached out to the traffic engineer and he basically ignored me. He told me I should go down and cross at 75th and Sheridan because it's a controlled intersection. As someone who comes from a direct service background, I see time and time again where equality is not equity, where bureaucracy and policy and real life butt up against each other, where those people who are writing our policy are not stuck with our policy. One of my least favorite examples is a friend was going through a mental health crisis and I was trying to help them secure different types of services. One of those was after we were at Kenosha Human Development Services over on 52nd was to get her a bus pass. Oh, but they have reduced bus passes. All right, great. Well, we'll go and get her. Oh, we can't get that at KHDS. Okay, we had to go all the way down to the job center, which is over on 8600 Sheridan, to get the form to get the approval for the discounted bus pass. But we don't get the bus pass there. You have to go down to City Hall to get the bus pass. So we have it, and we have these services, and why aren't people taking advantage of these services? And people should be taking advantage of these services. Well, but we make it really hard for them to take advantage of these services, or we almost make it so they can't take advantage of these services. So it's something that frustrates me as a single working mom. I'm coming from a place where other moms can't participate in this process. Other moms don't have a voice because if you don't have someone to provide you with free childcare, right? My parents are so involved in our life. I'm so blessed that I'm able to participate in this process to go out and collect signatures and be all over the place. Other parents don't have those options. Other parents can't volunteer. Other parents can't participate. A lot of what's happening is people who are affected by policy are cut out of politics. And right now, we have a lot of excitement going around our campaign, and you know, like I said, I come from a direct service background, so I've worked with a lot of different people individually. I love making individual connections. I may not have the same leadership experience of someone who has been maybe an alderman for 16 years, but I was recently on a county commission where I had to work with people I didn't agree with, and I didn't quit, and I showed up every single month. And there were times where I'd show up to presentations and I was the only one there. So I'm very much a person who commits. I'm very much a person who will see that the job is done, almost to the bitter end. I'm very much a type of person that I will not quit. And so I would be good for Kenosha because I am determined, I am enthusiastic. One of the things that I describe myself as is aggressively helpful. And it's the energy, that's that energy I want to bring to Kenosha. You know, I'm not the youngest person. You know, I'm sure there are younger people that are running for mayor, and I'm hoping that I'm still energetic enough and I'm still enthusiastic enough at my ripe old age of 37 that I can bring, a lot of vigor to the position. And I think that Kenosha deserves someone who enthusiastically loves Kenosha. And I know while we're not all gonna agree, I want us all to focus on the fact that we love Kenosha. And that is really how I'm hoping to get things done as a mayor.
So I would say what makes me a suitable mayor is, and I suppose a good leader is, I'm not one to seek power. This is really the first position or anything that I've ever involved myself in where I was seeking power, but it's also not for myself. It's for the vision of everyone in Kenosha. I think we need leadership that really is just transparent and really is speaking to the people based off of the wants and the needs of the people. I was yearning for something like that when I was young, and I know young people today are yearning for something like that as well. But it's not just young people. It's older generations as well. I talk to people that are well older than I am, and they're saying we need young blood, we need fresh ideas, we need a change. That's what I bring to the table. I've involved myself in the community as much as I could for the past, 3 years or so, but I've lived here my entire life. I've experienced what it is to be a Kenosha. I know what the good and the bad of being a Kenosha. I know the fun things that you can do, but I also know that we're, incredibly limited and hindered in a lot of areas. And I do know that as far as city planning, it hasn't really been designed for the next generation coming up. And someone that is in between being young and being old, understanding analog and digital lifestyles, it's time that we have leadership that understands the possibilities and understands where we've come from as well. And that's who I am.
Well, let me start with the second question. For me, leadership is not about being in front of the camera, ironically today. And it's not about being out front all the time. To me, it's about having the ability to get people to work together to solve problems and establish new ideas and bring them to life. A good example in my own experience was bringing the community health center in our community life. In the wake of the Chrysler pullout, a lot of people lost insurance, a lot of businesses folded. And the Mayor Interamian came to me and said, can you look at this federal report? I have a nursing background. And so I looked at the report and realized how serious the problem was in our city. Lack of access to primary and preventative medicine was a very serious problem. I was able to bring together people from competing hospitals, from county government, from local stakeholders, community-based organizations, the medical society, the dental society. We all gathered around a conference table, and we did that in a way that we built trust and a willingness to work together, because fortunately everyone at the table agreed this was a major community problem. In the end, we submitted the highest rated proposal in the United States to create a community health center. The city, I didn't realize at the time, had been trying for years to do that. And I think the secret sauce was building strong partnerships and trust. I think that's the recipe for leadership. It's not always, I have to be number one, I have to be in front, but giving away credit where it's been earned, letting people who've really been making a difference take a bow. I think that gets more people involved, more people want to participate, because they don't think they're doing this to make you important, they're doing it because they have a passion for building a strong community, and I share that passion.
This concludes our mayoral forum at UW Parkside. We, the community of the University of Wisconsin-Parkside, acknowledge with gratitude and humility the First Nations people of Wisconsin, whose original homelands lie within the state. We especially wish to recognize the Ho-Chunk, Miami, and Potawatomi nations for their significant historical and spiritual connections with the Parkside area. Our footsteps do not replace theirs, but rest alongside them. Today, Wisconsin is home to 12 First Nations communities: the Ho-Chunk Nation, the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin, the Menominee Nation, the Forest County Potawatomi Community, the Stockbridge-Munsee Band of the Mohicans, the Brotherton Indian Nation, and 6 Lake Superior bands of the Ojibwe Nation: the Bad River, La Côte Oreille, Lac du Flambeau, Mole Lake Skogan, Red Cliff, and St. Croix bands. The University of Wisconsin-Parkside acknowledges and honors this history and these nations. Special gratitude goes to the mayoral candidates who actively engaged in this forum, namely Andreas Meyer, David Bugdala, Elizabeth Garcia, Corey Elijah Washington, and Lydia Spotswood. Our thankfulness extends to Professor Alvaro Garcia, Music and Associate Dean of the College of Arts and Humanities, Sound Manager, Instructor Kevin Gray, and Parkside student Liam Simpson for operating the sound and camera work for this forum. Much appreciation to Dr. Simone Aritona Akindes, the Professor of Political Science and Director of International Studies at UW Parkside, who played a crucial role in refining the questions posed by members of the Kenosha community. Special recognition goes to the Executive Board of Parkside Student Government, who initiated and brought this concept to life, as well as selecting the elementary and high school questions. Acknowledgement to Kenosha filmmaker Evan Parshall, owner and editor of the 88s on YouTube, who provided the exterior drone footage shots of the Rita Talent Pickens Center for Arts and Humanities, as well as Parkside's natural environment. Musical intro number Evanston Civic Band March was provided by the UWP Wind Ensemble and Community Band, led by Dr. Laura Rexroth. The musical outro number, Theme for Ariana, Second Movement, was composed by Parkside student Joey Bellotti and led by Professor Alvaro Garcia. Also, thank you to the staff at the University of Wisconsin-Parkside who allowed this important forum to take place. Last, but certainly not least, thanks to all the others involved and the Kenosha citizens who submitted these insightful questions. Your invaluable contributions were indispensable to the success of this endeavor. Thank you.